Mercy is the compassionate, even protective care for the other, especially those most in need. The eldest daughter of friends of mine graduated from nursing school and was thrilled to be offered a job at the hospital where she had interned. This meant she could get an apartment of her own, which her mom and dad helped her to do in time for the start date of her new job. She began her profession both nervous and excited, going to work her first week with the enthusiasm of someone who was finally getting to do what she loved and had dreamt about for years. My friends delighted in her daily phone calls, describing every new experience during the orientation in the big, bustling urban hospital. After several months, however, my friends, her parents, began to notice a change in her. Her enthusiasm seemed to be waning. She no longer talked about her experiences on the new unit to which she had been assigned, and when questioned, gave dull one or two word answers, or she changed the subject and deflected the question. Her mom and dad thought maybe her work had become more routine now, or maybe she felt the events of her workday were best left at the hospital. Nonetheless, they still sensed that something was wrong. This in mind, her parents were somewhat reluctantly going on a long planned vacation for 2 weeks, and when she stopped by their house to say goodbye, she said she would like to meet with them when they got back from their travels. They didn't make much of that request. She often met with them for advice on finances or insurance, or the whole range of things a young person needs to know when they begin their adult life. When they did come back and she picked them up at the airport, they couldn't believe how transformed she was. Her enthusiastic, upbeat self was back, and she couldn't stop talking about hospital life. She also said she didn't need to meet with them, but that she would come home for dinner the next day. The conversation at dinner that evening was telltale. Her mother began by describing the changes they had noticed in her: enthusiastic to emotionally flat to enthusiastic again. That was followed by a long, quiet pause. She told them she hadn't talked to them about what was going on because she didn't want them to worry, but that it was clear to her now that they had worried anyway. Then it all came out. The unit to which she had been assigned in the hospital was supervised by a senior nurse who made it her personal mission to point out even the slightest mistakes their daughter had made. The senior nurse said that it was for her own good. She would never be a competent nurse unless she had someone to correct her, and besides, that's what a supervisor is supposed to do. At first, their daughter appreciated the corrections, but as the months dragged on, the reprimands never stopped. The new nurse wasn't quick enough, didn't ask patients the right questions, wasn't exacting enough in her record keeping, and on and on. The meeting with her parents when they got back from vacation was to tell them she wanted to quit nursing and go back to school for something else. She thought she had had it. She didn't even want to get a job at another hospital. When she went to work, the first day her parents were on vacation, she was surprised to discover that her unit had a new supervisor. Her former supervisor had quit in some kind of a dispute with the hospital management. The new supervisor was a breath of fresh air. As much as her former supervisor told her everything that was wrong about her, her new supervisor told her everything that was right about her. And after only 2 weeks of this kind of appreciation, she wanted to be a nurse again. Catholicism is a fundamentally optimistic way of living life. Not only is it about believing in God, it is also about believing in others, focusing not on their faults and failures, in which we all share, but learning, even disciplining ourselves, to see others as God sees us, full of the gifts God has bestowed on each of us, and celebrating each person's great potential to better the world. That is why when we find those who are in despair or who do not believe even in themselves, let alone in God, it is important that we practice the spiritual work of mercy that instructs us to counsel the doubtful. Sometimes even longtime Catholics do not realize the power that exists in this positive counseling, to see others as God sees us, to know that if God could become one of us in Jesus Christ, how saved and wonderful must we be? So whether helping a novice nurse discover that she is a gifted nurse, or encouraging someone who has lost their ability to believe again, or showing that person at rock bottom that God, with the help of the believing community, will pick them up again. When you counsel the doubtful, you really do practice the medicine of mercy.